everyone, and welcome to the Rainbow Project's 4th Annual Stakeholder Forum. My name's Ian Carroll. I'm a secretary on the Rainbow Project's Board of Directors. I'm a PhD student in the Department of Psychology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I'm your host for the evening. We are so happy to have you all join us tonight. So I'll start by running through this evening's agenda. First, we'll hear some welcoming words from the new president of the Rainbow Project Board of Directors, Carola Gaines. She'll be followed by Cheryl Kato, the executive director of the Rainbow Project, a child and family therapist, and a board member. After Carla and Cheryl speak, we'll present a compilation of Rainbow therapists talking about what they do best, therapy. 7 therapists have put together a presentation for you, our stakeholders and friends, a closer view of their work during the time of COVID-19, after which we are excited to have a very special presentation by 2 members of Rainbow's grandparents and other relatives as parents groups. So with that, I will welcome Carola Gaines. Carla is a community liaison manager at Courts Badger Care Plus. In 2020, she was awarded the Mike McKenzie Award by the United Way of Dane County for her volunteer work with Foster of Dane County, which helps marginalized families in the Madison-Dane County community. This year, she was elected as the president of the board of directors for the Rainbow Project. Everyone, please welcome Carola Gaines.
Thank you so much, Ian. Thank you. Well, welcome to our amazing stakeholders present today. Thank you for taking the time to join us. You will hear an exciting work that the Rainbow Project has been doing for over 40 years in this community. Our dedication to children and families that have dealt with trauma is our being. It's who we are. Our goal is to support our children and our families and to create a safe, healthy, and nurturing world for children and their families. Here at Rainbow, we provide restorative healing and hope for young children and their families who have experienced trauma. Let me say that again. Young children from the ages of 10 on down that have experienced trauma. A moment just to embrace that trauma. If it isn't addressed and processed early, that trauma can affect them for a lifetime. But here at Rainbow, we provide a foundation for lifelong sustaining skills so that families and their children can receive a place of healing. Well, what we do at Rainbow is a lot. And I'm going to run down the list for you, but it's more to come for sure. Here at Rainbow, we promote positive change within families, provide prevention, intervention, and treatment, advocate for mental health needs, strengthen and support our work in our social justice area, comprehensive diagnostic assessment, evaluate parent-child interaction and family relationships. We are a source in our community, a huge source in our community for referrals. We are engaged in trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy, adult therapy, counseling with individuals, counseling with couples, families, and groups. We provide parent education, provide parent-child play sessions, and in the video, you will see how, as this year we had unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic, and how our staff adapted is unbelievable when you see it on video. How they did the puppet and the hands and try to engage the child to interact and share some of the worst parts of their lives. We are an interagency that coordinates. We provide case management, again, advocacy. We are a consultant service, and in our community, we provide education and training. But the one thing that I want you to remember, besides all of those I mentioned above, we never turn a child away for the inability to pay. We never turn a child away for the inability to pay. And that's where you, our stakeholders, have been so supportive of our work. And while we still need to continue to engage with you so that you can see and understand and feel what we do in this community. Now it's my great opportunity, amazing opportunity, to introduce to you and to present to others our executive director, Cheryl Kato. She is our innovator. She has been dedicated 40 years plus in this work. She is engaged, compassionate, and amazing, and a phenomenal leader. I could go on with talking about Cheryl. She and her staff are committed to quality, having integrity, demonstrating leadership, professionalism, and thoughtfulness as they work with our children and their families during some of their darkest hours. Cheryl is my shero. So I introduce to some and present to others our remarkable director, Cheryl Kato. Take it away.
Oh my goodness. I wasn't planning on crying to start my presentation, but thank you so much, Carla. Such warm greetings tonight, and welcoming you to our stakeholder forum. Well, I will just start. We're launching, as Ian had mentioned, we're launching our whole month series, learning series, and we're so excited about it. And thank you so much for joining us. We know the published numbers nationally. There's an estimated 700,000 children reported for child abuse, neglect, physical, verbal, and emotional abuse, sexual abuse, including sex trafficking. Wisconsin, over 80,709 child maltreatment reports were made in 2020. And in Dane County, 4,159 reports. In the case of child sexual abuse, where 1 in 5 girls and 1 in 20 boys will be sexually abused before their 18th birthday, and nationally, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have been victims of some form of physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. And an estimated 5 million children witness domestic violence each year in the United States. However, we also know formal reports represent only 1/3 to 2/3 of the incidents that are reported. Beginning last year, due to the pandemic, formal reports actually fell, despite incidents that were rising. And we know via calls to hotlines, reports to primary and mental health providers and advocates, and this is similarly reflected in other states and countries due to the isolation, unemployment, lack of access to healthcare, mental health care, and other resources, and less support in general available from schools and childcare staff. We're seeing increasing depression, anxiety, risks of suicide. And so we really are grateful for our funders who are past and present and ongoing. Children from homes with violence are much more likely to experience significant psychological problems, short and long term, many meeting the criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder, and at a rate 1,500% higher than the national average, and 6 times more likely to commit suicide. 50% more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol, and 74% more likely to commit a violent crime against someone else. Child abuse and neglect costs the United States $220 million every day. However, today I want to deepen further on what this month really represents. If we stop the world a moment and think about what's happening to the children in our community, our country, and our world, it is staggering. What are children witnessing every day in their homes, communities, on the news? Recent reports from the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Psychological Association, the American Professional Society on the Abuse of Children, and the National Child Traumatic Stress Network all have developed best practice and research on the impact of racism on children, their social, emotional, physical development, as well as physical health, and recommendations for best practice policy and protocol in child welfare and the court system. We really have a lot of work to do, which leads me to think about what is most critical in our deep growth and development as an agency. Our wise, savvy, and solid board of directors. It is not easy to be a nonprofit in nonprofit world, and you have to have a strong and dedicated, compassionate board. And to be on the cutting edge of our field for all of these years. Are the formal degrees and certifications and specializations and knowledge and experiences of the Rainbow staff important? Absolutely, but there is no question about that. However, it is the deep human life wisdom, understanding, dedication, insight, compassion, respect, and cultural proficiency and humbleness that is so essential in connecting with the children and families we work with. Healthy boundaries, independence, trust in themselves and others, particularly the children and families we work with that have many reasons not to trust. Their leadership, teamwork, grounding, and commitment. These are qualities that set us apart and are quite honestly often impossible to teach. We are grateful to them every minute of every day during these challenging times for their energy and their inspiration. They are truly MVPs on our team. And thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Carla and Cheryl. And now we invite you all to sit back and enjoy this presentation by the fantastic, incredibly dedicated therapists at the Rainbow Project.
Hi, I'm Daryl LeCount, Clinical Manager at the Rainbow Project, and it has been an extraordinary year. One that's challenged us in many ways, related to the pandemic, economic effects, racial justice and equity issues, and political unrest. Despite all of this, we're extremely proud of what we've been able to accomplish under the circumstances. This includes the adoption and implementation of telehealth services. So if you'll recall back to March 16th of 2020, that was the last day our clinic was open for in-person services. All Dane County schools had just been ordered closed. The NBA and NHL seasons were suspended, and UW-Madison had just announced that it was going to an all-virtual format following its spring break. That day, following public health guidance, we made the difficult decision to suspend our in-person operations. Immediately, we started contacting our consumers. We wanted to know how they were doing, what their needs were, and how we could help in response to the rapidly developing situation. We also worked on developing a telehealth policy in compliance with federal and state regulations, which were changing sometimes daily in response to the pandemic. We chose a video conference platform, and then we started training our staff in our policy, our technical aspects, and some of the unique ways to communicate using a virtual format that are different than in-person communication. At that point, we were ready to start using telehealth across the programs. So a year later, telehealth has allowed us to continue to provide treatment while adhering to health and safety practices to mitigate the spread of coronavirus. Telehealth refers to the delivery of behavioral health services using some sort of interactive technology. For example, we are using Zoom for healthcare for our telehealth services. And I'm excited to share a few of the different ways that we've done that. So one of the issues that we encountered with telehealth is the materials that we have readily accessible in the clinic just aren't something that's accessible in the homes of most of the families that we're working with. So in some cases, we were sending materials to the families that we're working with, or we were bringing materials home so that we could use them during telehealth appointments. And one of those materials were puppets, because in the clinic we use them to interact with kids. And similarly, we'd use them in the virtual format because it's more engaging for people, children in particular, to speak with a puppet. And they may say things that they wouldn't feel as comfortable saying to a person. We've also had clinicians who've had role-playing kinds of activities that they've done with kids. So for example, they may have the child pretend to be a star on a television show. And so the clinician will ask them questions as if they were interviewing them in a TV show format. And then the child engages in that, and it makes the activity more engaging for them. Finally, we use a lot of books. We used to read them when we were in person, but a lot of the therapeutic books that we use are also available in a video format online. So one thing that we have done is read books or had them read in YouTube, and then we're able to ask questions that help relate the character in the book, say, to a child's particular experience. So I'm going to show you a few of the different things that we have done with children in telehealth. And one is something called the whiteboard, which some of you are probably familiar with. And it basically just lets us have a canvas to draw on. So we may ask a child, draw a sad face, and they would use their mouse and they would draw their face, and we could see, you know, what that looks like. You could have it frowning, you could have tears coming down from it. So that's the whiteboard. We also have sometimes worksheets and things like that that we're sharing. This is called the cognitive triangle, and it's just a means to show a relationship between one's feelings, thoughts, and actions. And so we can present this and kids can see it, and then we can type in, you know, how they felt, maybe happy and nervous. Maybe their thoughts are, I have a lot to catch up on. And maybe their actions are, they're going to get right to work once they get back to class. So that's just an example of something that we might use the screen share for. Similarly, there's something that we have used with some of the groups that we have done called a virtual group room. It looks a little bit like this. So obviously we're meeting with groups using telehealth as well. So in this particular virtual room, what I use it for at least is to go over the agenda for the group that day. And agendas help kids because they know what can be predicted, and especially kids who have experienced trauma. So I might say, so we're gonna start with a welcome and review. We're gonna go over the group rules, and then we're gonna talk about anxiety. And you'll see this alarm clock that just showed up here. And one way that anxiety sometimes acts is almost like an alarm in our bodies to warn us of certain things. Then we're going to use something called the CBT triangle. And we have that up here, and that's just a way that I'll talk about that has to do with connecting what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and what you're doing. And then finally, we'll do a closing activity. So that's the virtual group room. And then finally, one of our therapists found this, and it's pretty neat. It's in our clinic, we have sand trays, just little trays with sand and then a lot of little characters, and they can use those for play therapy. Obviously, we can't do that as well virtually, but one of the therapists found this virtual sand tray. So we might have a child say, pick out a character. Let's say they pick out this cat. So they get the cat and they can put the cat where they want. And then we might say, I want you to build a safe place for this cat to live. They might want to have a tank. And they might explain that the tank is to keep dangers away from that cat. And they may decide they want paramedics to always be nearby. They may say that they want a taxi cab that can take them wherever they want to go. So then we can ask them questions about what they've made and why they chose what they chose. And that can help us both with assessment as well as treatment. So those are a few of the tools that we've used. A question we've been asked is, how do families like telehealth? And last fall, we administered a survey, and of those who responded to it, more than 86% said they were either satisfied or very satisfied with the telehealth services that they had received, and they wanted to continue using them. So looking to the future, my thought is there'll probably never be a time where we don't use telehealth in some way going forward, even once we return for mostly in-person services. It's more accessible for a lot of people. There's not transportation, so there's a convenience to it that is a little different than coming into the clinic. I would probably envision that it will be used as a supplement and not as so much as an entire way of providing treatment for most people.
Hi, I'm Samantha Burr, a child and family therapist and coordinator of the Bounce Back program. Bounce Back is a group intervention for elementary age students that have experienced stress and trauma. The goal of the Bounce Back group is to help teach students ways of coping and recovering from their traumatic experiences and bounce back and feel better. The group includes 10 weeks of skill building sessions for students held at school. The curriculum is an evidence-based program that includes cognitive and behavioral components. Some of the skills learned are feelings identification, relaxation strategies, cognitive coping skills, and problem solving. Another important part of Bounce Back is that parents and caregivers are involved. Parents and caregivers get to learn the same skills that the students learn throughout the 12 weeks in parent sessions. The students and parents also get to have a session together in which the student shares a story that they've created about their stress or trauma with their parent. At Rainbow, we have partnered with the Madison Metropolitan School District for the past 3 years to deliver Bounce Back to 3rd and 4th grade students in about 22 different elementary schools. This partnership includes a school staff member, often a social worker or psychologist, facilitating the group with a community mental health clinician that could be from Rainbow or other partner agencies. This partnership utilizes the expertise of both the school staff and the mental health clinician to the fullest to provide a safe and meaningful group experience. Because it's provided within the school setting, it eliminates many barriers that families experience when seeking mental health services. Often transportation can be really difficult in getting to an outpatient mental health clinic. There's often a lot of time that needs to be committed to attending sessions outside of school. The ability to complete treatment can often be difficult with scheduling restrictions. And sometimes insurance can limit services that families receive too. But with Bounce Back being delivered in the school, often these barriers can be eliminated. From the information that we've collected from national providers of Bounce Back, and then from the delivery of Bounce Back in Madison with Rainbow, we have seen that group really does help students reduce the amount of anxiety that they're feeling and other post-traumatic stress reactions. Bounce Back also helps the students to develop stronger connections with trusted adults at school and home. This year, our delivery of Bounce Back has been virtual due to the COVID-19 pandemic. With our strong partnership between school staff and students, we have found a creative way to continue to provide an engaging and effective group experience for the students. And to give you a sense of what our virtual groups look like, I'll share our Bounce Back classroom with you. So we have been running groups virtually through Zoom, in which the participants will join either from home at a community rec program, somewhere at schools, and we all come together in this virtual space that we've made through Bitmoji and Google Slides to kind of replicate the feeling of safety that we would have in an in-person group experience. So this is an example of one of the sessions we might do. We have our little agenda on our virtual chalkboard. Our groups typically start with a welcome and like a fun question to kind of break the ice and get things going. So we might ask, would you rather be invisible or would you rather fly? And then we often review the skills that we've learned in the previous session. And for this one, the students get to learn how to rate their feelings on a thermometer. So we can hop over to our picture of our thermometer here and learn how to rate the level of our feelings on that thermometer. And then in this session, the students also are learning what happens in their bodies when they're experiencing anxiety and stress. And so we have this cool picture of a person over here. And when you click on it, it comes to a worksheet that the students can fill out together online to draw and show what happens in their body when they're starting to feel anxious and nervous. And then that is something that the students can share out with each other and kind of start to build connections and see what in their body is happening, and then also see if they have that in common with another student or what might be different too. And then also in this session, students start to learn different ways to relax their bodies when they're feeling anxious and nervous. So we have a few things in our virtual classroom for that. So we can come over and click on our little stuffed animals, and it links to a video on how to take deep breaths and belly breathe. We also have some pictures over here of different animals and objects, and that leads to another document that teaches kids how to progressively relax their muscles. To end group, we often practice one of those relaxation strategies, and kind of towards the end of those 10 weeks, the students start leading some of those activities too as they get really comfortable and know the skills well. Bounce Back plays an important role in supporting young children and families that have experienced stress and trauma.
Hello everyone, my name is Jonathan Martinez and I'm one of the bilingual child and family therapists here at the Rainbow Project. For my portion, I'll be discussing two culturally specific programs we facilitate here at Rainbow, one being our Soy Yo, Soy Única, Soy Latina Latinx Girls Group, and the other is Échale Ganas, our Latinx Boys Group. In Soy Yo, Soy Única, this is a group for Latinx girls between the ages of 9 and 12. In this group, we focus on identifying what is cultural identity, what are some cultural values, healthy communication, healthy relationships, self-esteem, and looking at the overall family functioning. In this group, we additionally identify what is stress and other big emotions that we might be feeling, and what are some healthy ways to cope with these big feelings that we might have. In Soy Única, we talk about how to make healthy decisions when challenged by peer pressure and or media influences. We also talk about the importance of how this group can reinforce the strengths in our group members while empowering their cultural values and their overall identity. Similarly, Échale Ganas is a 10-week group for Latinx boys between the ages of 9 and 12. Our curriculum really focuses on processing and defining what it means to be a Latinx male. We discuss expectations and cultural assumptions that come with being a Latinx male, in addition to defining what is culture, self-esteem, trauma, other big feelings or emotions that one might have, and healthy coping skills to handle these feelings. In this group, we work on creating a safe environment for our members in order to build a sense of connection and also vulnerability. We discuss how cultural values bring us together and can be used as a tool for perseverance and to overcome some of the experiences we have had or we might face. These groups are important preventative factors for our Latinx communities. These groups allow our kiddos to bond or build connections and relationships with others who have come from similar backgrounds or experiences. They help our families feel like they're not alone and provide a healthy intervention to some of the experience that they have had to face, and also give them the tools to persevere and feel some sense of matter again. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cecilia Huerta, and I'm a bilingual, bicultural child and family psychotherapist at the Rainbow Project. Latinos are the largest growing population in the United States, the largest minority group in Wisconsin. Despite these facts, Latinos have the highest uninsured rate, despite the fact they have one and sometimes two jobs. They also tend to drop out of services and programs at higher frequency because of lack of appropriate rapport building, language, and cultural differences. Latinos also present multiple mental health risk factors, including high poverty levels, high incidences of domestic violence, physical and sexual abuse that have exacerbated during the pandemic, increased alcohol and drug abuse for second and third generation Latinos, trauma experiences, including crossing the border, racism and discrimination that increased during the recent past political climate, higher incidences of exploitation at work, and increased family conflicts due to acculturation differences between parents and children who are born or who grow up in the United States. Living away from close relatives who stay in their home country has also gotten significantly more stressful because of pandemic issues that are also occurring in other countries, and difficulty coping with dual culture pressures, especially for Latina girls who have very high rates of suicide attempts. Due to Latino workers being overrepresented in industries that have been hit hardest during the pandemic, Latinos have faced large losses in employment, especially among Latinas in the service industries. Latinos have been 1.7 times more likely to contract COVID-19 than their non-Hispanic white counterparts, and they have been 4.1 times more likely to be hospitalized from COVID-related illnesses. Latinos have also been 2.8 times more likely to die from COVID-19 issues. Latinos, along with other communities of color, as mentioned, have also been disproportionately harmed by the economic fallout. Although we represent 16% of the US population, we account for 23% of the initial job loss due to the pandemic. As a way to try to help close the gap for cultural specific services for this population, Rainbow Project offers several programs, including the Mujer a Mujer support group. This is a weekly ongoing group for Spanish-speaking moms with trauma, depression, and anxiety symptoms. Fortunately, we have been able to continue meeting via Zoom throughout the pandemic. When we're able to use the building, we provide childcare, and we have found ways to continue to meet and deal with having children at the home. So during the group, the women talk about their experiences, their issues and difficulties coping with what's going on in the world right now, in addition to their previous mental health difficulties. We have also been talking more about connecting with resources, including rent assistance, assistance for utilities, ways of dealing with kids who are having difficulty with school, also having to take the classes via the internet. And we have also had to intervene with a couple of families because of increased suicidality that has gotten worse, of course, because of isolation. We have had to put them under a rapid response program so that we can help them become stabilized until they get connected to longer-term services. The women in the group also learn to identify and cope with their depression and trauma symptoms. They learn healthy versus unhealthy behaviors and relationships. They learn more adaptive parenting skills. It also helps significantly with breaking the increased isolation during the pandemic and continuing cultural adjustment issues. So for the group, we get referrals from clinics, social services, agencies, school social workers, and other referrals. We also have guest community service providers that talk about important topics in the group. We've had people from DACE, from the Department of Civil Rights, Worker Rights, Consumer Protection, CPS, Amigos en Azul from the Police Department, Planned Parenthood, Tenant Resource Centers, and many others.
Hello, my name is Monica Madrigal, and I'm a bilingual child and family therapist and the program coordinator for the Early Childhood Zones program at the Rainbow Project. The Early Childhood Zones program is a collaborative effort between various Dane County early childhood home visitation programs that are all committed to address social and emotional needs of families with children birth to age 4. Services for the Early Childhood Zones program are geographically focused with the goal of increasing resources, increasing a sense of connectedness to the community, and stabilizing particular communities of high need in Dane County. Out of the various geographical locations currently served, Rainbow Project provides mental health services for families in the Leopold, Sun Prairie, and Northside zones. Early childhood zone services are all grounded in the knowledge that families are more successful when parents and children have access to responsive, comprehensive, and community-based support. Thus, the Early Childhood Zone follows an integrative approach of various agencies working together with families. There are core home visiting programs that provide a range of free services, which all include family stability case management, support for and education about having a healthy pregnancy, promoting positive parent-child relationships, child development information, and school readiness assistance. Once being connected to one of the core home visiting programs, Early Childhood Zone participants are also offered other home visiting programs that enhance the core programs. These enhancement services include assistance in securing and maintaining stable housing, support in working towards employment and education goals, and the opportunity to receive mental health services. Again, with the overall goal being family stabilization, improvement in health and well-being, and support for child development and school readiness. An important thing to note about the Early Childhood Zone program is that home visiting is at the core of the program. And this is important because we are able to meet families where they are, not only emotionally, but physically as well. There's oftentimes many obstacles in the ways of families participating in services such as lack of funds, transportation issues, or childcare needs, among other reasons. Therefore, these home-based services address many of these obstacles. In-home mental health services are specifically beneficial for the therapeutic relationship, as many people often feel more comfortable and more relaxed in their own homes. This also really provides an opportunity for us to observe natural interactions between family members and to observe how people use their space, which are all really helpful tools for treatment. Gulshan is now going to give us a deeper look into the Rainbow Project's role in the Early Childhood Zone program.
The Rainbow Project provides culturally proficient, home-based early childhood mental health services to families participating in the Early Childhood Zones program in the Leopold, Sun Prairie, and Northside zones. Our goal is to provide services including assessment, intervention, referrals, and advocacy for children and their families who have experienced trauma, early relational attachment challenges, or other mental health concerns. Around 60 to 65% of the mothers involved in the ECZ program met the criteria for depression. Our goal is to improve social-emotional well-being for these families and provide parenting support and skills when needed. Additionally, we provide mental health consultation and educational support to the home visitors and other individuals working within the early childhood zones. In working collaboratively with the home visitors and zone-based providers, we anticipate that families will have their emotional well-being needs met. We emphasize that there is an importance of collaboration within this program, which gives families a team, and we are better able to serve these families when collaborating rather than having many services individually working separately. We also provide updates to the other members working with this family. This allows for there to be more communication and integrative services altogether. For our consultations, we collaboratively approach to support the home visitors in order to support the families. Presentations we have provided for the Early Childhood Zones program include supporting early childhood, grief and loss in young families, and addressing mental health needs during COVID-19.
Hello. My name is Serena, and I am an adult and family therapist at the Rainbow Clinic. I'm here today to talk to you about two groups that we offer at the clinic. The first is grandparents and other relatives as parents, or as we affectionately like to call it, GORP. The other is Coach's Corner. So I'll start by talking about grandparents and other relatives as parents. That group has been meeting since 2004. The group started when a number of Rainbow clinicians were noticing that more and more children were being raised by their relatives. And so that would include grandparents, aunts, uncles, etc. And so they were seeing that there was a need to support these caregivers in their unique role. So they developed a support group. And since that time, the program has evolved and includes various components. The first is that peer support group. That is something that is offered to interested members every month on the second Saturday from 10 until noon. And when we're meeting in person, it includes childcare and coffee and other refreshments for the caregivers. That group includes, like I said, the peer support, which is facilitated by a Rainbow clinician, in this case myself. And it also includes opportunities for members to hear from community members who have expertise in a topic that is relevant to the caregivers. So we have had people who have come in and shared their expertise in anything from adult mental health and substance use that helps support caregivers in understanding their adult children, to experts in identity and race and intersectionality who are able to come in and talk about what it is to provide care to a child who does not identify in the same way that the caregiver does. So in addition to the group support component, we also offer community outreach in the form of the Warm Line, which is a service we provide to community members who reach out to the clinic and say, I am a caregiver and I would like to either get emotional support, problem solving, maybe it's a referral to a community resource. And they're put in touch with me, and then I am able to make contact with them within 48 hours to be able to provide that support that they're looking for. In addition to that, we do community outreach in the form of presentations and the development of a quarterly newsletter that goes out. So those are the different components of the program and what we offer to the community. What we have learned is that the program has had a tremendous impact. We typically have between 10 to 12 members. We have members who've been around since 2004 who are continuing to come. And at this point, their grandchildren have been out of the home for a number of years, and they still see the benefit in returning to the group to provide that support for new members who are joining. So the members are very dedicated and very committed. And we also have new members who have joined as recent as last month. So you'll actually hear from a new member who has joined in the last year, as well as their partner. So that'll be a fun treat. So that is grandparents and other relatives as parents. So Coach's Corner is another group that we offer. This is a 10-week group that is offered twice a year, so spring and fall, and it's offered to any interested community members who are in a parenting or caregiving role. The purpose of this group is to provide education on the 5 steps of emotion coaching that were developed by Drs. John and Julie Gottman at the Gottman Institute in Seattle, Washington. And in the 10 weeks, the members learn what these 5 steps are, how to apply them, and then they're given support through a clinical facilitator, myself, their peers, in applying these steps. So what that looks like is for the first half of the group, members are coming, they're learning the steps, they're getting an opportunity to have their understanding deepened by other supplemental materials that support them. And then within the last half of the group, they're coming back to sessions with the opportunity to practice these steps in between sessions and then get feedback from their peers as well as myself when they attend. So in total, they are able to walk away knowing what the steps are and how to apply them, and they'll have had time to apply them while still getting feedback. 3 months after the group has ended, I then reach out to the families who've participated and I check in with them and hear how they're doing, how the steps have been applied, where they're seeing success and where they're seeing opportunity for continued growth. And in those calls, I'm able to hear about the progress that has been made and the ways that it's impacting the parent-child relationship or the caregiver-child relationship. And it is a tremendous honor to be able to hear that from the parents and caregivers. So in one instance, back in 2018, I spoke with a parent and I was so struck by their progress that they had made and their experience having been in the group and then now post-group. And I wanted to invite that parent to come back and talk to parents. This is a parent who at first was a little skeptical, didn't quite know whether or not the steps would have the meaning and impact that they did. And so I thought that this parent would be very relatable for a number of the parents and would also be able to demonstrate that across time, these benefits can really be understood and realized. And so she has since come back multiple times to the group. We're currently coordinating for her to come back to this existing session that is occurring right now. In the email that she sent me, she just made mention of the group's impact, and I thought it would be important to share with all of you because I think her sentiment is one that I routinely hear from others. So she's commenting, "I'm so glad to hear from you. I hope things are going well. I'm also so excited and grateful to be invited back again. I feel like this is continuous growth, along with a few setbacks, all of which I am hopeful can help to show others that this mind frame and these steps are genuine and really help connect and promote understanding long-term and are not just do these steps and fix it now and never have problems again kind of program. It's more a way of life that is honest." So with that sentiment, I'll leave you knowing that Coach's Corner is one of many programs that Rainbow is offering that is having a huge impact. In our case, we've been able to impact over 45 families in the last year, and we're adding 12 families to that in this spring session. So that brings our total up to 57 families that have been impacted over time. So that's Coach's Corner.
So in closing, I guess I just want to say, recognize kudos to the families that we're working with, for their patience and their understanding through this pandemic. Huge kudos to our staff. They are amazing, dedicated people who have put their heart and soul into their work with consumers and have really adapted over all the challenges that we've experienced in a way that really humbles me. And finally, to all of our stakeholders, thank you. Without you, we aren't able to do what we do. We appreciate your assistance and your support. And, together we are helping change the lives of families with young children who've experienced trauma. Thanks.
So thank you to all the Rainbow therapists who took the time to record themselves talking about their work. We greatly appreciate it, and I'm so glad we were able to get further insight into how therapy is being conducted during the pandemic. I also want to say thank you to the entire Rainbow staff for your flexibility and continued dedication to serve our families despite this unprecedented global pandemic. So next, we are thrilled that we'll be able to be joined by two members of our grandparents and other relatives as parents group. Mike and Jennifer McKenzie will be introducing themselves and talking about their experience as grandparents involved in our GORP group. So now, please join me in welcoming the McKenzies.
Hi, thank you so much. So I'm Jennifer McKenzie, and I'm going to just give a little introduction about myself. My husband will do the same, and then we'll talk through our story with GORP. So I have had the opportunity for about the last 20 years to work in social service agencies myself. I've worked with food share and Medicaid, and currently I oversee operations for the Division of Medicaid Services with the state of Wisconsin.
Hi guys, I'm Mike. I also worked for the state and Dane County for many years, doing eligibility for Medicaid, the old AFDC program. I've been around long enough for that, TANF, SNAP, and it really, I think that background really helped both Jen and I in terms of understanding somewhat how to navigate through the social services ocean that we had to go through again. So we want to thank Ian and everybody else at Rainbow for having us today. For some of you maybe on the meeting today, you can remember like I do that GORP was actually a trail mix. So that's what I thought about when we got on this meeting was the trail mix. And I like that acronym for our group, partly because I'm an old hippie. So thanks for having us. Jen and I are going to talk to you a little bit about the events that brought us to GORP, talk to you about how we found out about it, how GORP has really helped us, some things that you may not know about our members, and some of the biggest strengths of the GORP group. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jen, because if I talk about all this stuff, you guys won't be able to go home tonight.
He does like to talk. So a little bit of our background. So Mike and I got married about 5 years ago. And when we got married, we brought together a blended family. So we have 3 adult children and we have two 15-year-old twins. And our youngest adult daughter has kind of struggled as an adult. She has been a little bit in and out of trouble, but she found herself in a very negative relationship with a gentleman. They had a baby about 9.5 years ago. And Mike and I were both really concerned about where that relationship was going. But we felt like there wasn't really much we could do because we weren't really seeing huge red flags. Another year later, they had another baby. And then a few years after that, they had a third child. And a little background on the dad. So the dad met our daughter when he was incarcerated in prison. They were prison pen pals. What we found when he got out of prison is some of the behaviors and characteristics that led him to become incarcerated still continued. And we saw a lot of emotional and verbal abuse to our daughter. And on top of that, he was very physically abusive with her. We, of course, as parents, tried to talk through it with her and really tried to put her in a situation where she could make some better choices. At one point, we tried as a family to do an intervention and get her in a domestic abuse shelter. But unfortunately, everything that we tried really did not resonate with her. And eventually, due to the excessive physical abuse of our daughter that the children were witnessing, Child Protective Services in Milwaukee County removed the 3 children from their parents' custody. And so that kind of began our journey. So we received a call from Child Protective Services that our children were removed, these children were removed, and that they were going to be put into foster care unless if we wanted to take them. So Mike and I right away hopped into our car and drove down to Milwaukee and picked up the 2 oldest children, because at that time she was pregnant with our 3rd granddaughter. And so we really had no idea what we were getting into. We thought it was going to be something that was going to be very short term. We really had the belief that our daughter losing custody of her children would really kind of be what pushed her over the edge to make some better choices and to put herself into a better situation, relationship-wise, parenting-wise with the children. At that time, we really worked with her. We worked through with several social services agencies, both in Milwaukee and Dane County, to try to figure out what would be next. She had the baby probably about 2 months after the children were placed with us. And we definitely had our concerns. At that time, the children's father had beat up our daughter when she was pregnant, and he was on the run from the police department. So we didn't really know where he was, but we continued to be concerned about the welfare of the baby. So about 6 months after she was born, we again received a call from the social service agency in Milwaukee saying that she had been removed from her mother's custody and could we take her. Again, we hopped in the car and drove down and picked up the baby. At that time, we're looking at a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 6-month-old. And as I said, our youngest at that time were 12, they're 15 now. So we didn't know what we were doing. I was very lucky in that I was able to take some time off of work to bond with the baby and take care of her. But it was a really stressful situation for all of us. And in the meantime, because we lived in Dane County, but the kids lived in Milwaukee County, we were working with 2 separate social service agencies. So we had a Milwaukee County social worker. And then in addition to that, we had a Dane County social worker. So we had social workers at our house probably about every 2 weeks. So that was a crazy time. And we were really looking for some therapy for the kids. We were trying to figure out what could we do to best help them. And we talked to several different social workers, and we tried a counselor that we thought would work, and it just wasn't the best fit for our family. And then we were lucky enough to have a social worker from Dane County transferred to our case. And we were kind of talking through with her the situation that we had been through with the kids and the amount of domestic abuse they had witnessed and some of the situations that they had been in. And she said, you know what I think would really be great is if your family reached out to the Rainbow Project, because they offer a variety of services. So we've been very lucky. We have been able to get the kids into individual one-on-one therapy with a counselor from Rainbow, Bree, who has just been absolutely amazing for them.
Thank you, Bree.
But one of the best things that we got from that referral to the Rainbow Project was the GORP group. So as Serena talked about a little bit in the video, the GORP group consists of about 10 to 15 members, a couple married couples, a couple single people. We have members that have been in the group since the group started, and their other children that were living with them are grown up now, and they still come religiously to every meeting, and they provide guidance to us that is amazing. Every time that Mike and I attend those GORP meetings, we walk away with a piece of knowledge that we didn't have before that really helps us to make a difference in the kids' lives. And in addition to that, really helps us to cope and try to understand what we're doing, where we're going with this. It's been a struggle for us. It's been a challenge for us. And it's really great to know that there are other families that are going through the exact same things that we're going through. There's a lot of challenges with caring for your grandchildren. You really become attached to them and you start to look at them like they are your children. At this point, we've had our grandchildren for about 3 years. Mike and I are the legal guardians for them. Their parents have been in and out of their lives periodically. Their father now is incarcerated and will likely be incarcerated for the rest of his life. Our daughter has just come back into our life after about a year. So we're working on mending not only our relationship with her, but really helping the kids to mend their relationship with her. And one great thing that we have about GORP is many of the things that Mike and I are struggling with, members of our group have struggled with in the past or are currently struggling with. So we can talk to them and share with them how we're feeling and get their feedback on what they've done in the past.
Yeah, and I would just like to add to that because the way Jen and I were raised, when these kids had a choice of going into the system or coming to our custody, it was an easy choice. I mean, it's affected our marriage, it's affected our relationships, but we both feel like the choice was so easy. And one of the things that GORP has helped us with is connecting with other people that felt the same way. And everybody doesn't have to feel the same way, but it's been helpful for us to know we're not alone, and we've been participating in this group since August of last year. So we've only been able to meet with this group virtually so far, but the connections we have made have helped us so much. And to be able to talk to people that are experiencing the same ups and downs that we are about raising these little kids. The idea right now that at 61 years old, I'm teaching potty training again. I never thought I'd be doing that, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
And I think, we have learned so many valuable lessons from the GORP group. And I think just to kind of mention a few of them that really have resonated with us, we learned that it's okay for us to set limits with their parents in terms of communication and visitation. For the last 3 years, we've been the kids' constant. And it has been really hard for us, I think, as our daughter's parent, but also as, the pseudo parent for these 3 kids to try to say, we know you're their mom, but we also feel like we know what's best for them and we have to make those hard decisions. And I think that having the ability to have those conversations with a group of people who have dealt with the same things has been really helpful for me personally. Probably my best lesson, the best thing that I have learned from this group is that not everybody processes things the same way. And so when I look at our daughter and I see that she's struggling, I tend to think that, why isn't she doing better? But what I've learned from this group that I've taken away with me every single time is that everybody is just doing the best that they can with what they have available. And for me, that has been life-changing, not only when it comes to the children, but when it comes to my life in general. And Serena has done such an amazing job with this group. And one thing that, you know, we really appreciate about Serena is that she's very upfront and honest with what's going on. So if someone in the group has something going on that's hard to talk about or hard to deal with, she will let them know that it's a safe space to have those conversations. And the group is always so very supportive of each other. And I think that is something that really I've taken with me. And I'm just so grateful for the Rainbow Project for giving this service to us and letting us form this group of friends and this group of family that make something hard so much easier to deal with.
And because you do this in a group setting like this, you know, there are always privacy requirements, but this group is so close knit that they have been very open about sharing phone numbers or email addresses so we can connect outside of the group, which clearly a lot of people do. You can see how tight-knit these people are. And it's been really helpful for us to know it's not just every second Saturday of the month. If I need to talk to somebody, we know that they are there. What else?
What else? I guess I will just say again that this group really unofficially, I mean, we don't have these conversations about we're going to learn this skill today, or we're going to learn, you know, emotional wellness today. But every single meeting that Mike and I have walked away from, we have immediately looked at each other and felt like we can be better caregivers and we can be better parents because of the information that we've gotten. And everybody in the group has something different to offer. And I really feel like everybody learns something every time.
Yeah, and as Serena mentioned in her presentation, there are people that started when this group began and their kids are grown, but they still participate in this group on Saturdays. So their kids are grown, but they still participate and they share things that help us in terms of what to expect, or we'll discuss our situation and they'll weigh in, and it's so helpful. And Serena has done a fantastic job of facilitating this group and involving everyone. So if somebody is particularly quiet, Serena will just check in with them and just see if there's anything that they want to add. If they don't want to add, there's no pressure, but she's always looking out for everybody in the group, and I appreciate that so much.
And I think kind of in closing, I'll just say, I mean, this group has really been life-changing. I think for us, we, again, have gone through some life-changing events, getting custody of our grandchildren, but our family is doing well. And I think, again, this group has just really helped us to see examples of what these hard situations can look like when you're parenting.
Yeah, and this is very emotional for me. I really want to thank Rainbow for giving us this opportunity. The kids are doing great. It's taught us how to communicate with my daughter again in a more effective way. Thank you, GORP. Thank you to all those participants. And I want to end this with just a story about yesterday. And we took the kids to meet their mom for the first time in 8 months yesterday. And it went so good. And Morgan is doing so good. And I just want to thank the Rainbow Project and GORP for what you guys have done. And Ian, we'll take any questions now that anybody may have. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for sharing your story. I mean, it sounds like, Rainbow's been supportive and sort of like, helping you with skills, but also building this sense of community where you can be in touch with folks who've maybe been down a similar path and learn from them as well. So I'm so happy to hear that, like, you feel like you're being supported and you're really seeing positive changes, both, for your own well-being, the kids' well-being, your daughter's well-being. I'm just so happy for you guys.
Thank you. And we're so appreciative of what Rainbow has done for us.
One question we have is, how has the way you've raised your biological children differed from the way that you're raising your grandchildren?
So I think that's a great question. So it's very different. As I said in the beginning, Mike and I have a blended family. So his 3 older kids he raised with his first wife, and she unfortunately passed away. So they had, one way of doing things, and those children are, significantly older. I myself have 15-year-old twins who I had from a previous relationship, and, started raising them one way through a divorce and a few other things. And then we get these 3 smaller kids. And so for us, it's our first time really parenting together.
Mm-hmm.
And then in addition to that, it's kind of a different environment because these kids have been through a lot of trauma that, our other children haven't been through. So I think really being able to rely on each other, on our friends, and really having the ability with groups like GORP to kind of come and say, we're not really sure what to do with this because this isn't something that we've dealt with before. I mean, a great example of that is, like Mike said yesterday, we had the kids to see their mom yesterday, and it was hard. I mean, it's been a long time, and we want to make sure that we're emotionally supporting them, but we also want to emotionally support our daughter. So I think there's a lot of differences, but the main one is just really looking at what the situation and circumstances are around their daily lives and making sure that we are meeting the needs that they have.
And for me, of course, raising 3 kids, my oldest son is 35, turned 35 this weekend, right? And so how our parents raised us inform us in terms of how we parent our kids. And so let me put it this way. I'm a much more patient parent now. It's really this, to have learned from raising my kids and then having Jen's kids here, and now having this opportunity to start over again. I'm a much more patient parent this time around.
Awesome. Well, thank you for answering that question. I want to say you're getting a lot of love in the chat, just in general, with sharing your family's story. One question we have is, do you know if there are any GORP members who found the group directly rather than through the child? Would you have found GORP had you not brought your kids to Rainbow?
So we actually initially heard about GORP from the social worker that the kids had. So I would say maybe, maybe not. I will say that I can remember going to a doctor's appointment at Stoughton Hospital and seeing on their board a sign for the GORP group. And at that time, I didn't know what it was, but I think it's out there. I think definitely things could be, done to publicize it more. We do have one member, I think, that lives in Stevens Point that recently joined. And I want to say that she kind of found it on her own.
Thanks for answering that question. One question I have, right? Like, you started the group in the pandemic. The pandemic has been a whole host of, it's really been a challenge in itself, right? For doing therapy, for finding out, seeking out community and really getting support. What was your experience like with things being virtual?
I'll start, and we both work from home, so we've had to adjust. And so we use Zoom, we use Microsoft Teams, we use GoToMeeting, we use Adobe Connect. Even as we became aware of this more through work, we even started connecting with our families that way. And so because of that, for us, by starting in August, it was very easy. That said, this group is amazing, and I can't wait for that day when I can shake their hand or give them a hug.
Yeah, and I would just piggyback on that. I mean, I love face-to-face interactions. I'm a social person, so I feel the same way as Mike. I just can't wait to see these people that I feel like are becoming a part of my family and a part of our kind of our social group. And I'm looking forward to hugs and lunches and just meeting people face to face.
Yeah, and I think part of that is the skill that, part of the success is the skill that Serena has had in terms of gauging people in that situation, because it is different and people pop in and out. They'll turn their screen off for a while and come back in, but it takes a really good facilitator to be successful. And she has done an excellent job of making sure that everybody feels involved. That doesn't mean that you have to talk, but that you feel like you're involved.
And that's awesome. I think it's so, it's so amazing that, despite all these challenges, you're able to get that sense of connectedness, and Serena's been able to facilitate that for you. And
Yeah,
I'm so
for sure
just happy to hear that, because it's not an easy thing to do. It's not
Right.
an easy thing to make connections during a pandemic, and make connections virtually.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy to hear about that. And I'm so excited for the moment that you're going to be able to meet those folks in person. It's going to be like, I'm sure it's going to be like an amazing moment for you guys.
Yeah.
Another question we have, so there's a comment first, just saying that they're so impressed with how you've devoted your time to learning about trauma and supporting all your kiddos and grandchildren. Lots of love to you both. In what ways have you carved out time for yourselves?
So I love this question because it is so important. And as Mike said, when he did a little bit of our introduction, this has been a difficult struggle for us. I mean, as a fairly newly married couple that already has a blended family, adding 3 more kiddos in hasn't always been the easiest, but we definitely have made a commitment to each other. And sometimes, it's just us saying, like, we know we're having a rocky, hard time now, but we're committed to being together. And we are so lucky because our oldest daughter and our oldest son are very helpful. Every Thursday night, our oldest daughter keeps all 3 kids overnight, and we do something. And so, like, tomorrow night, we're going to go play golf at Bytense, just the 2 of us. It's really making sure that we carve out that time. But we have such an amazing network of friends and family that help us and make sure that we are carving out that time. We've even done, a couple short weekends away where our oldest daughter will keep the kids. Last summer, we were able to take a little vacation. We took everybody to a beach house for the summer and spent time there and got to spend a lot of time with the kids, but also kind of got some one-on-one date time. I think it's important to just be really cognizant of, as a couple, you need that time, and it's okay sometimes to be selfish. And I think that's another good lesson that we've learned in GORP, is that, self-care is really important too.
Yeah, and family and friends have really helped us out with that. It's so important to have a network, to be able to say, I need a little respite today or tonight. And somebody is always willing to step in and help us out.
And that's amazing. I think that, it is so important to have that time for yourselves, right? Because when you're caring for everyone and you're always on go, go, go and trying to be that caregiver, if you don't have that time for yourself to recharge or sort of, be with each other, right? Because it's a newer marriage, right?
Yeah, and a toddler is a 24/7 situation.
Absolutely. So I'm so happy to hear that you've both found ways to, have that time for yourself, have that time for each other. And you have really like a strong support network of family, friends, like you are just really connected. And I'm just so happy to hear about that.
We're so lucky.
That's awesome. So I wonder, I have a question for both of you. You've been in this group since August, right? And
Yep.
you've learned lots of lessons along the way. If a family kind of came to you in a similar situation for the first time, what knowledge would you share with them, or what sort of thing that you've learned would you pass down to someone who's in a similar situation?
You're gonna mess up, and that's okay.
And to me, it's you are not alone. You're not the only one in this type of situation.
Well, I want to thank you both for being here and just sharing your story. It was great to meet you both virtually, and hopefully someday we'll meet you in person, or I'll meet you in person. If you'd like to learn more about our GORP or any other Rainbow groups, you can visit our website, therainbowproject.net. So again, just want to thank you for taking the time to give us an incredible look into your experience in this group. We'd also like to thank Serena, again, the therapist who brought you, the McKenzies, on tonight for such a fantastic presentation. And thank you all. So now we'd like to have a final word with Carola and Cheryl to close out the evening. So I'll say my goodbye here. I just want to thank you all for joining us tonight, and hope you have a good one. I'll turn it over to you both.
Thank you so much, Ian, and thank you, Mike and Jen, so much. Wow. I am speechless, and I know that so many are going to benefit from your presentation. I just want to thank all of you for joining us. We know that you're invited to many events, so we really do appreciate that you took the time to attend tonight, and we wanted to thank our staff, our board, professional resource network members, stewards of the Yellow Brick Road, donors and faculty, our community partners and volunteers, and most of all, the children and families that we work with. Please remember too, this month, each Wednesday at the same time on April 14th, when Percy Brown is speaking, on the 21st, when Ryan Harenga is presenting, and on the 28th of April, when Fabiola Hamden and Cecilia Huerta will be presenting. They are exceptional presenters, and so really want to remind everyone that we want to really celebrate this whole month in terms of recognizing Child Abuse Prevention Month. And please remember to give us feedback. We are really an open door on what we're doing well, what we need to do to improve our services and program direction ideas. Also remember, April is Sexual Abuse Awareness Month. And the Rape Crisis Center is highlighting some great activities throughout the month. And April 16th through the 23rd is the National Week of the Young Child, to celebrate our young children. So thanks again, and I will turn it over to Carola.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Thank you. Again, I can't thank you all enough for spending your quality time. We know time is valuable, especially we've learned it during this unprecedented time of COVID. So we thank you for your participation. Thank you for supporting us in the past. We thank you for your continued support for us now and ongoing. What incredible stories we heard from Mike and Jen. My heart was just beating. Thank you to our staff again. And as a new board president, I am just so excited to be a part of this great organization, to continue to lead and work with Cheryl in our community, and to be a beacon of light, of hope, and that rainbow that puts someone's life at hand, to know that there is hope when they can see Rainbow Project. Know that it's hope and love and success right there in their hands. So I thank you so much. And so with that, Thank you all and good night.